Shalom Akim, Kahalayim Na Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai Bahashem Rachakodash. Thadi Al Shah for the strength and all to make this video. And Yaratazah that you find it edifying and exhorting. Edifying meaning to build up, exhort meaning to encourage. So really this is just based on the update on the beast system infrastructure. Because of course in the past year or past decade I should say, we've learned about the 5G technology in terms of the telecommunications network, them having it as a faster way of getting downloads or uploading to the internet, pretty much things of which will sell as a convenience to the audience or to the consumers. You'll be able to download a movie faster or upload some content to YouTube or to any other social media platform faster, which is pretty much how 5G was sold. But now 6G, which is the upgrade after that, will be... There was actually a video that mentioned one being able to pretty much call a taxi by a thought or something, or just by saying a few words. And of course, in order to actually implement that, it would require the Internet of Bodies, as the apostles mentioned this recent camp as well, this past Saturday. So, because they did mention a lot about the data centers, well, at least in the beginning parts of the camp video, because it was an indoor sit down pretty much. And the Internet of Bodies, man, that's a phrase that I remembered as well, because yes, it will be a network of bodies when you consider, first of all, yes, the telecommunications, the cell towers, 5G, 6G, as well as the chip implants. That's why I'm holding this scripture right now. Revelation 13 and verse 16 to 18. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bonds, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, aka a microchip implant. That's what that mark is. So when people say or ask the question, what's the mark of the beast? It's the microchip implant. Because it says it and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. So society is just going to be in that state where, in order to partake in Esau's kingdom, which is the beast system that I'm talking about, you'd have to have a chip implant. But by taking that, especially really focusing on Jake here, if an Israelite, a so-called Negro, Latino, Native American Indian actually takes it, then they'll be disobeying Yahweh. They'll be disobeying Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, and disrespecting them rather. Of course, 2/3, they don't really care, because they're sick in the head, as it says in Isaiah chapter 1. The whole head is sick, spiritually sick, mainly speaking. Of course, physically is one thing, but spiritually sick is the main point here. So it says it, right hand in their forehead. So the microchip implant not necessarily will be on the right hand, it could be on the left as well. But the forehead is reference to the head, man, aka you can see it as the Neuralink implant. And there could be multiple companies that would distribute this too. So don't be surprised, it's not just one. You can see Neuralink and DARPA as like the pioneers, if anything. I say that loosely because there will be other companies getting on that too. But they're the ones who, I guess, who would light the spark in terms of chip implants. Revelation 13 and 17, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. And I remember during the time of 2020, 2021, 2022, where, you had these people, not just on YouTube, but on the other platforms, thinking that the MOTB, the mark of the beast, is the V-shot. But it's not the V-shot. Because, of course, you can still buy and sell in other means. You can still use cash, go to the store, and you can buy. You can still use your card. You can still use your phone to pay for things. So there are other means in order to make payments. But with the chip implant, that'll be the only means in order to partake in any form of commerce. If you want to buy something, if you want to sell something, in case you're into business, that will be restricted to the chip implant. So that's what that means there. It says in verse 17 that no man might buy or sell, Save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom, let him that hath understanding. So which means this breakdown here of the mark of the beast being the microchip implant, not everyone's gonna understand it. So some people, they'll hear it, it'll make they won't be able to comprehend it. But some people will, which we say Thou Shah day by day for giving us that spirit of understanding to understand these scriptures and what our apostles and elder bishops have taught us as well in Great Millstone. So Revelation 13 and 18, here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number 666. And as you can see on the right side, it says 666. So that's really a number that represents man. 6 is which really you could even say, it represents Esau, Edom, considering himself as the one to corrupt the body. Because this chip implant is something that would corrupt the body. Hence why in Revelation 16, I'm going to get to the video soon, I'm just relaying this as context. So Revelation 16 and verse 2. And the first went and poured out his vial upon the earth, and there fell a noisome and grievous sore upon the men which had the mark of the beast, and upon them that worshipped his image. So of course those who take that mark, they will have noisome means smelly, something, a scent that is very unpleasant, and then grievous means painful. So again, these are going to be like cancerous boils on the skin, or cancerous something pertaining to cancer, man. It's going to be very clear. You walk past someone in that time who took the MOTB, and it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. They have a very distinct and unpleasant smell. I believe that will be far worse than just body odor as well, man. Or bad body odor. Anyway, so that's going to be the result of those who take the mark of the beast. So Yahweh Shemashah is going to make it clear who made it, or who took it rather, I should say, because there's going to be that smell and there's going to be a pain. All right, where was I? Actually, I might as well get to the video because I'm talking about the MOTB, the beast system infrastructure. So yeah, AI. I mentioned about the chip implants connected to the 6G, 5G, 6G grid, which is the telecommunications, and as well as the AI infrastructure as well, which will be used for data harvesting, of course, not just storing data, but the analyzing of data as well. For instance, if you watch this movie called Minority Report, you'll have a good sense of how it is with Tom Cruise trying to escape that digital system, man. He had to get literal surgery to replace his eyes in order to be somewhat anonymous. But yeah, I believe it's free on YouTube. It's one of those movies where you could just type up Minority Report movie on YouTube, and then it should say free with ads. So in case you can't, it was on Netflix before. Actually, it was on Netflix. Nevertheless, it doesn't matter. But it was in one of these streaming platforms. But that doesn't matter either because it's free on YouTube if you want to actually watch a movie. So yeah, Minority Report. And then yeah, hold on. Let me get to the video now, because yeah, that in Minority Report, not to spoil the movie, it pretty much shows how the beast system would be like, or if someone tried to escape the beast system, how it would feel like. They're gonna start playing with your memory and whatnot. This is a video by Cold Fusion. He does some very informative documentary type of videos, or even mini documentaries. It says, why building AI data centers isn't working anymore. So I only skip to the key parts, and I'll leave the video in the description, and then that'll be it. Don't want to make this video too long, because all it really is just putting two and two together with why these data centers are required, and also how fundamental they'll be in terms of building. Well, in terms of just building the foundation for the beast system, because remember that time where Bill Gates he was buying all that farmland, and no one really knew why. Now you could put two and two together. It could easily be Ford space to build those data centers, which Esau's going to be working on those, working towards his agenda. But let's play this.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. $650 billion. That's the... Hi, welcome to another episode of Cold Fusion. $650 billion. That's the amount four tech companies were expected to spend in 2026 alone for new data centers. To put $650 billion into perspective, stack that amount in $100 bills, and the pile would rise 710 kilometers, clearing the orbit of the International Space Station by over 300 kilometers. And the plan is to get this number up to 9 trillion by 2030. And yet, with so much money allocated to this, nearly half of the data centers planned to open in the US this year have already been delayed or cancelled outright. According to a report by Bloomberg, around 140 data center projects were supposed to open in the US this year. Together, they represent roughly 12 gigawatts of computing power, enough energy to power 9 million homes. But there's a problem. So far, a third of them are actually being built. The rest just sits entirely on paper, press releases and announcements. In another report by the Financial Times, the data centers that are actually being built will likely face major delays. The companies involved in building them may deny that there are any delays, but satellite imagery says otherwise.
But if you go and look at Microsoft, for example, none of the data centers that they have announced have broken ground since 2023 have actually been finished. The Fairwater data centers, they've said that was fully complete. It's not even half complete. It's one of the strangest things I've seen in history.
But beyond just the completion issue, the general public hates data centers. Between infrasound noise making people sick, polluted water, higher energy costs, and a myriad of other problems, people have had enough. Because who's actually paying the price? Not the shareholders, not the companies collecting tax breaks. It's ordinary people, homeowners, families, communities, those who happen to live a few hundred meters from one of these facilities. They never got much say in the matter. So here's the question. If the world is spending so much money on AI infrastructure, how is it possible that that very infrastructure itself is falling apart before it even gets built? And is this finally the sign that many have been predicting? Let's get into it.
I got one challenge for you. Try WhisperFlow once. One time. And I promise you'll understand why.
You are watching Cold Fusion TV.
I'd love to hear your perspective, not on the spend, but on the return needed to make those numbers work.
They'll never get it. Yeah, they're just shitting away that money. Right, we're going to spend $1 trillion because we need all this data center capacity. Some of them are spending more cash than they have available.
They're shitting away the money at scale.
It's hard to do, right? But
when the AI boom exploded into public consciousness with ChatGPT in late 2022, the race to build the underlying infrastructure became almost frenzied. Data centers became the hottest asset class on the planet. Investors poured in, and governments competed. Nowhere was the build-out more intense than the United States. Last year, it was estimated that 92% of US GDP growth came from data center spending. If you remove AI infrastructure, the rest of the economy grew by 0.1%. That's why the stock market skyrocketing felt so out of touch. And to give you an idea of where we're at, the shoe company Allbirds recently announced that they're pivoting to focus on leasing AI data center equipment. It made no sense, but their stock rallied 580% as a result. All the signs are here. Data centers are in vogue. The pitch was simple. AI gets smarter the more computing power you give it. Computing power comes from data centers, so let's build data centers fast. In the US alone, the number of AI data centers went from essentially zero a decade ago to...
And essentially, before they were more specialized to for AI, hence the difference between AI data center and just a normal data center. Where whenever you visit a website or whenever you visit some platform online on the internet, it has to be hosted on a server. That server is built in order to Well, yeah, just to store the information that the website holds or that platform holds. And of course, you gotta have a load of computers in order to keep these running. So let's say if that server went down, or that computer went down specifically, that means you wouldn't have access to the website no more. Hence, probably back in school, you remember well, not even back in school, but sometimes when you visit a website, you get the 404 error, which it means that either the server's down, but something's up with the website where it's not being hosted properly. So the point is, a normal data center, to store things, to store data, to simply put it. And then you got the AI data center to, of course, store data and, of course, analyze it as well as just to store and to retrieve data as well, just to simply put. So they need this, to actually process a whole load of people taking the chip implants, man. That's a whole load of identities and information, medical records, all in all in one chip.
Somewhere between 4,000 and 5,400 today. The pace and scale of the build-out are fast. In the US alone, the number of AI data centers went from essentially zero a decade ago to somewhere between 4,000 and 5,400 today. The pace and scale of the build-out was so violent that more money has been committed to data centers in 6 years than was given to the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe after World War II, the Manhattan Project to build the atomic bomb, the entire Apollo program, and the cost of the International Space Station combined, with $120 billion extra left over. All of this spending for a business plan that isn't even solid yet. And besides, GPUs rapidly become outdated and they become expensive to keep replacing. I'm not saying that AI is never going to work, but is it going to be profitable in the time frame that's needed for funding not to completely collapse? It's looking less likely. It's perfectly possible that this is all a huge waste of money.
So when you think about all these people spending all this money, look, if you're the best programming, like Claude is, and that's your niche, great. But I don't know what the niche of these other ones are. Do you?
No.
More than 2 of these facilities were being built every single week at the peak of the boom. States like Virginia, Texas, Georgia, and Arizona were rolling out the red carpet. The tax breaks made the data center business even more attractive. Texas, for example, handed out over $1 billion in incentives for the Stargate project alone, the $500 billion OpenAI and Oracle AI campus in Abilene. Virginia, home to what's known as Data Center Alley in Loudoun County, saw 56 data.
That's the thing. It's not. Of course, they're not building all of these data centers just for people to just create, entertaining AI images or AI videos, or really just for the common pleasure of the layman, the common man. It's for their own agendas, for their own incentive here, which, as I said before, is to keep people's identities in place, billions upon billions across the world, and of course to analyze it as well, to retrieve it at any moment, analyze it, red flag them, blacklist them, whatever they gotta do. That AI grid surveillance system, that's what they're doing it for.
Center projects received nearly $1 billion in tax savings in a single fiscal year. The promises attached to all of this were enormous. Thousands of jobs, a new digital industrial revolution. One analyst compared it to the railroad boom of the 19th century. The reality, however, is very different. The companies bringing in these facilities often received property tax abatements for years, meaning the local community absorbs the infrastructure costs without the tax revenue in return. One report found Oregon schools lost $275 million in potential tax income due to these abatements.
Let me get to another point. I'll link it in the description, or you could just search it up and you'll see the video around this point here.
365's early payout offer is incredible. And guess what? It also applies to our bet builder.
$90 to over $700 in just 3 months. And Sam Altman was to thank for that one. He promised to purchase 40% of global DRAM output from 2 manufacturers simultaneously, apparently without either one knowing about each other. When Micron learned the commitment wasn't legally binding, its stock dropped 22% in a single day. So naturally, all of this has led to backlash. Data center cancellations due to local opposition quadrupled in 2025. According to intelligence from the platform Heatmap Pro, at least 25 projects were cancelled that year due to community backlash, up from just 6 in 2024. And that number is accelerating. The will of the people may not last, because the US government is watching this backlash closely, and the FBI has classified anti-AI sentiment as an emerging terrorist threat.
If you've criticized AI or data centers, you may now be considered a domestic terrorist. US law enforcement.
Say no, family, the word is coming as well, man. Imagine. You saw those people who go against AI or anti-AI would then be seen as domestic. Let me hear it again. Hold on.
AI has classified anti-AI sentiment as an emerging terrorist threat.
If you've criticized AI or data centers, you may now be considered a domestic terrorist.
Yep, so a domestic terrorist, man. So if you're out there, for those who do protest against as an anti-AI individual, they're pretty much on a certain list, considering what she just said, man. Especially over there, I believe she's saying it in regards of America, but nevertheless, it could easily be applied for the rest of the world too.
U.S. law enforcement warns of anti-tech extremism. The chaotic atmosphere that may result from emergent AI technology in the next 5 years may fuel large-scale protests that devolve into civil unrest and anti-tech violent extremist activity.
Imagine if they do this for the anti-tech or anti-AI, how much more when Esau's building up his system and he says he regards us, the prophets of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, as an anti-Esau system. That's really what you got to say to summarize this thing. We're against Esau Edom, clearly, considering our words and what we say, which really can be quite painful for Esau to bear. But of course, we got to bring out the truth. The truth has no regard of whom receives the information. The truth is raw and honest. We got a job to do anyways, man. We're here to serve Yahweh Shem Yahushai, not men.
So, if you have ever protested AI publicly, you are now on a list.
But despite the potential of ending up on an FBI watch list, people are fighting back.
They canceled it!
Say what?
They canceled it! We are going to be fighting against data centers everywhere in New Jersey.
A recent Quinnipiac survey found 65% of Americans now oppose data centers being built in their communities.
It makes sense. Polluting the waters. If you just search up data centers, you'll find some documentaries or even just some little videos based on it. People complain about the noise, as well as not the noise, the water as well being polluted. And not just the water too, their bills are getting impacted. So that they're not even using that much electricity, but yet they're the ones of whom are impacted by the energy usage of those data centers, which of course requires a lot of electricity. It makes no darn sense. But Esau's the evil man. Now let's get to the scriptures and then we'll close it out. This is Psalm 64 and verse 6. They search out iniquities, they accomplish a diligent search, both the inward thought of every one of them, and the heart is deep. So of course they're going to plan out everything that they need in order to accomplish this beast system of theirs. And even to downright to the detail in terms of psychological manipulation, they'll try and do that too. I believe Esau has also tried to offer people money in order to not report them in terms of in terms of the negative impacts of the data centers. But people don't want to accept the money because, first of all, their health is at hand. So anyways, there's going to be a lot of battles to be fought in the near future, not just battles really pertaining to ideological battles, which means two people with contrasting ways of thinking. One's for tech, one's not for tech, so on and so forth. Kind of like what do they call them? Was it the Republicans and the Liberals or something like that? point is, it's just political ideologies against each other, and the way people think contrasts with the way other people think. You know, don't be surprised, man. That civil war gonna ramp up real soon, man. Not just in America, but in other places too. Especially considering with all the events and incidents that are happening, you know, all the stabbings and whatnot over here in the UK. Just keep your eyes open. You see the works of Yahweh Shem Yahushai. Alright, so this is Micah 2 and verse 10. It's a good sign because it means Yeshua's at work and he's building his infrastructure. Micah 2 and 10. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest, because it is polluted. It shall destroy you even with a sore destruction. So of course, literally it is polluted, especially with these data centers, man. Because computing, they need a lot of water, you know, to cool them, or they need to find a way to cool these things. Nevertheless, of that, whatever Esau does, you know, seems to always be corrupting the earth anyways, you know, because his mind is not oriented towards preserving the earth. Considering his nature, it makes sense. So anyways, Akim Yaratazar, I'm going to leave it there. The point is, you got them data centers that are there predominantly to store and retrieve data. And they retrieve the data in order to analyze it too. So kind of like China's facial recognition system, or with the cameras, surveillance system, I should say. You know, people's faces are identified alongside with their identity as well. I believe their identity is also linked to their WeChat, which is like see as a form of digital currency over there in the land of Moab. But yeah, so that's pretty much as a tryout for the rest of the world, man. But yeah, that's really it. Yaratazar, link in the description. And Shalom, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, Barakatah.